All right, so this is our juniors focus for concierge call, college visits and demonstrating interest. And our agenda for today is understanding how to schedule college visits. We're going to talk about virtual as well as in person, why we want to do that, how that relates to this conversation of demonstrating interest, and really understanding the college perspective of what this thing means and why we talk about it. And we have Alan Katzman with us, who's also going to talk about LinkedIn for the sake of college admissions enrollment, as well as how that can demonstrate interest to colleges and how best we can utilize that. I have some of you that are already signed up in his program, and then others, if that's something that you want to add on, we'll talk about how that is a possibility. And he's going to do for the second half of our time tonight, showing you how all of that works and how fabulous it is. Both me and Corey were like, I need to refresh my LinkedIn profile. And you will hear my child and apparently cat skittering in and out of my office. So welcome to life. Okay. The types of visits that we typically talk about for families to take advantage of in this process, especially when you're talking with me and Abraham and developing out your college list, right? You're looking at schools often in different parts of the country, and we don't expect you to go get on flights in order to figure out if we have a passion for it right now. That is why we have this ability to take advantage of virtual, and as we really love them, decide to go do some in-person. But then there's also some preview days, which I was actually just talking to a junior where she's down in Oregon, and she just did a tour of University of Puget Sound, absolutely fell in love. And I was super excited for her. But she's like, I'm going to go see Willamette and Lewis and Clark as a comparison, which is fabulous. And Willamette has their junior preview day happening in February. And then, and a lot of the time you're going to be getting, if you've signed up, and we'll talk about this as one of those ways of demonstrating interest, sometimes you're on default getting emails from the universities, and it's super overwhelming. And some you want to pay attention to if they're coming from those schools that we're actively interested in. And primarily for these kinds of opportunities, if it's a school on your list and they're doing a junior day and you're getting the full spiel and experience, that can be fun to take advantage of, especially if it's a school that you're really, really interested in. Now, how we go about scheduling visits, they often are all going to have this cute little calendar thing built into the websites. It makes it really straightforward for us to just go and find something that works for us. There's usually a morning and an afternoon session. I will say more often than not, though, Saturdays aren't as prominent anymore as they were before COVID. Therefore, you kind of have to work around like they just went over the long weekend, right? And it made sense. So you just got to figure out what works best for you. And that's why we also talk about doing virtual, because it's not always possible to get to these schools and take off work, etc. However, there are some, and I want to say, who was it? It was Pacific, actually, down in Oregon that I visited a few years ago, where they don't believe in the calendar, at least they didn't back then. And I had to fill out a Google form in order to schedule my tour. Well, that's because it was personalized one-on-one. Alrighty then, if I get to do something one-on-one, then fabulous. And that just means you're going to have even more flexibility. But oftentimes you're just going to the college's website and saying, where can I find that visit button, and do this accordingly. Now, the things to expect on our tour, often there's going to be some combination of like a 30-minute admissions financial aid chit chat with somebody from administration at the university. Sometimes they can do a student panel or whatever, but oftentimes it's going to be just like admissions financial aid for 30 minutes, followed by a student-led tour, which could be an hour or a little longer, depending on the college and how they break it out. University of Puget Sound is kind of an exception in terms of the fact that they also let you sit in on a class. Therefore, you get to pick. And so she was like, oh my God, I got to talk to the professor for like this, that, and the other thing. And he does like some combo program of all of these things that she's in love with, because that's the way they do it at UPS. And that then she got to sit in on a class, have a conversation with professor, eat in the cafeteria, talk to admissions and financial aid, and do a student-led tour.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
that's how it was at UNR when we were there with my daughter in the big room with everybody. Every department had a booth and had grad students and regular students. And so you could talk to them in an open forum. And then we did those tours and ended up in a small room with a professor in her major.
Mm-hmm. And that's great too, because it's like, that is a public school that's actually doing it like a private school does. And right. That doesn't always happen when you get to the larger universities. Like if you do a tour at UW, you are a number and they tell you you're a number, and you're doing admissions and you're doing a student-led tour and you get the general spiel and that's it. Have fun. The other side of this too is, right, like checking out the local area, making sure that you kind of vibe with what's going on. And then for parents, they often will have some form of like Facebook groups available to you as well. So if you want to stalk what the, parents are actually saying about the university, that is a fabulous way to be able to do it as well. Now, these are just like my quick, these are things that I will often hear from people about like why I wouldn't want to go do a college tour. And so I like to put them up there to be like, well, no, not really. If I visit in that summer over break, I'm not going to get that full feel of campus life. And then I realized, most of the tours that I've gone on, I haven't been there when school was in session. And for some maybe that are like the super extroverts that want to see a bazillion hundred people around, like me and Corey went to San Diego State and we were like, it's pretty busy here. We thought we were going to get run over by scooter peoples and all the things. And if that's your vibe and you enjoy that, what'd you say, Miss Corey?
Oh, and that was an off day that we were there.
Yeah, and that was an off day.
Us, and it felt like a lot. And she was like, yeah, no.
So if that's what gets you going about like your college experience, I get how you may not want to see it during a break. But if you think about what we were just saying of those things you want to take advantage of when you're on a college tour and getting to really know more about the school, the culture, the professors, right? Like the things that are going on that you're going to be taking advantage of, not just that there's a whole bunch of people walking around, right? There's that. And then I'll hear, well, I don't need to do an official tour. It's fine if I just walk around campus on my own. Right. Well, there are walking tours. You can do that. But yet again, you're not going to get that experience of talking to a human. My favorite thing was this mom and daughter. They were like, yeah, so we walked up to one of the diversity table on campus because everything just seems so great. So we just asked the current students, what's really terrible about this school? And they just gave us the deer in the headlights look. And they were like, thinking about it, they couldn't come up with anything. And so then we got to see the dorms, but we didn't get to see the bathrooms. Are the bathrooms terrible? And they were like, no. And they were spot checking information from random people on campus, right? That is also kind of nice, right? And you're going to, even during summer, you're going to have students on campus that are doing stuff, right? You're going to have random people that you can encounter. So it's great to take advantage of that experience. And then kind of that, campus tours aren't worth my time and money. Well, you are making a 4-year commitment to this college and spending however much money that we may be spending in order to do this gig. I think it's beneficial to see the dang thing. Even if you're not going to do it in junior year and you're going to wait till you get in, see how much money you get, right? Going and visiting is beneficial. I tell people don't stress about like having to go see every single school now, but there's a lot of different ways that we can play the game to show our interest and being able to do virtual until we decide that that is something we want to commit to spending money to go on a flight in order to do that.
Or a lot of times we'll say, Go see the small private school in your backyard. Go
Mhm.
see the big public school in your backyard. Get that feel of it in person, even if that's not where your kid wants to go.
Right.
Stepping on those campuses is educational, informational.
Mhm. And a lot of this does lead into, especially if we're, say, on the West Coast and and you're looking at schools on the East Coast or vice versa, they want to know that you are actively interested, especially those smaller liberal arts schools. They're going to determine if you've done the virtual session, you've connected with your admissions representative, and you've done those things. You're showing that level of engagement to the point where they feel you may be more likely to convert, or you may be more worth getting that additional scholarship. So that is why this last one on here is like, yes, if you're not able to get on campus, we need to do those other things because it does have an active intention in taking advantage of admissions opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Visit resources as well in your files in College Planner Pro. So for those of you, when you go into your portal, you're going to see the college visit. There are a variety of different things that you can use here, depending on who it is that you're talking to. Also stuff in terms of virtual opportunities. And one thing that I thought was kind of interesting was there are some schools like Montana Western, or not Montana Western, University of Missoula, Montana, is one that like I first saw this for, and Amazon has a college tour series, which is fabulous. Like they do like full episodes, 30 to 60 minutes about everything you'd want to know on the university. And often the universities are also then hosting that on their YouTube channel. So you can go backstock it and you don't necessarily have to have Amazon Prime or rent it or whatever, which is fabulous. So I always say look for that because they're typically promoting that on their website if they are a university that has done it. And it is a great way outside of like what we've already been telling you of looking at the FIS guide and how to investigate the college and like the culture and those things, right? Go do this. All right, so what in the world is this thing of demonstrated interest? The best way to explain this is colleges want to create, they want you to yield, they want you to show up on campus and enroll in their institution. And they're just trying to figure out who is the highest opportunity to yield and come to their institution. And they then are tracking those different areas of how you are showing that interest, which is what we're going to walk through next and what Alan is going to talk to more specifically in regards to the LinkedIn aspect, where doing this, as you can see, 40% of colleges reported. NACAC is the National Organization of College Planning Counselors in the country. 40% are still saying that demonstrating interest mattered for admissions. And this isn't stuff that I'm making up. And I can't tell you how many schools that I have gone and visited at this point in time, and the different conferences that I have gone to where it's the administrative side and the colleges and those that are running these institutions of enrollment management at these schools, where they are talking about things like SLATE, which is their program that they have on the back end that is working on admissions and enrollment management, student outcome and success and retainment, right? Making sure that your kids stay there. And then, of course, cultivating alumni relations and all of that. So this is their full meal deal process to figure this stuff out and make sure that you are, like filling out the form and doing the stuff and the things, right? And then, your kid's there, we're holding you, and now you're going to be a happy alumni. So this is a process that universities, right, over 1,600 schools are using this platform in particular, or some other version of this. And one of the things that we look at as well when we think about who's demonstrating, which colleges are looking at demonstrated interest, I think we may have even talked about that at our last session, where we can look at that on college data. We may have. things are blurry for me, where there is actually like we pull from a certain column in the data statistics that the colleges are reporting on the level of demonstrated interest means to them, right? Like how actively are they looking at it? Because University of Washington don't give a crap, right? Like you don't have to demonstrate interest. You're just a number and you're going, versus others where it's super important and everything matters. Now, how are those ways that we can go about demonstrating interest? It seems silly, but then there's that online information request form. And I thought it was super fun because Alan told us the same thing last time we talked to him. And this is really like, and one way too to also just easily get in. And I know you guys get spammed, right? Like you get a boatload of stuff from these colleges. So you can always create that college specific email that you know that all of these things are going to go to. And at some point you're going to actively check it or filter it for those colleges that are coming in that you're interested in, so that those ones actually hit your inbox or get forwarded to an email you actually care about. But this is one step. The second is, of course, social media. And I totally respect those of us that are not on social media. But there are a variety of different ways that we can go about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. And I always just say, pick your favorite, because this is something that, like yet again, NACAC always likes to do their surveys, where 60% of applicants report liking or following a school on one of those platforms. And it is just another way as well for you to gain information and see other tidbits about a university, and the life and the culture. And people don't always think about that as like a positive way that we can use social media to achieve those goals. And then emailing our admissions counselor. This is something that I push all of our students to do. Once you have gotten a good idea of kind of some schools we're actively interested in, there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing this, because you are also making a buddy in your pocket. And I've had schools that'll reach back out to students and actively help them fill out their applications because they want you to come. Right? Like you have a question about this essay or you have a question about this, and they're like, no, we're going to help support you and hold your hand through this. Great. Like that's our job too. But if they want to help us with that, we're more than happy to help them. But this is also a great way to be able to say, hey, if I talk to my admissions counselor and I really want to talk to a kid in nursing at Gonzaga, well, then I can ask them, is there a kid in nursing at Gonzaga that I could talk to hear more about that program and opportunity? Yes, there is. I'd be happy to connect you. Okay. Those opportunities aren't going to come to us as easily if we're not putting ourselves out there to make that happen. And attending those admissions events in our area or virtually. There are a boatload of them, and I've had kids go to the huge events at the convention centers, and it's good exposure, getting them used to like this concept of having these conversations. But the other side of this as well is making sure that they are educated consumers and that they know, right, like that there are tidbits that you're going to get from different experiences, but it is also just kind of checking a box sometimes. And sometimes they don't feel like it's super relevant. Like, hey, if there is one of the representatives from a school you're interested in is coming to your high school and you can have a one-on-one, that may be more beneficial than going to the huge convention center. Right. So take what, makes the most sense for you, and advantage. And then the actual campus visit. And they, this is one of the cute little statements. It is one of the strongest indicators of interest is going to show up in person and doing that piece of it. And you're going to see this is kind of a small screenshot, but the point is over here, and this is a Gonzaga example where they're like, hey, we've got our daily campus visit, we've got the virtual tour, we've got group visits, we have nursing Fridays. Hey, you want to do a Saturday visit? Here's a preview day, right? Like everything you could possibly imagine. They have. Some schools, we don't have that many opportunities. And then they often will say, well, hey, if you can't do that or you have a question, right, email visit@gonzaga.edu, right? Like they're there. This is their job. They want you to come. They want to sell you their school. Okay.
Yeah, what I was going to say. Isn't it safe to say if a college is making it that available, it's that important to them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's why, like, when you go to UW's website, what do you see? Not much of anything because they don't have to. um, this is one of the most crucial ones, I will say, nowadays, is also the why this college essay. And you will hear me harping about this throughout this process as we definitely get into application times, and I will be teaching Abraham to harp on you as well. Because it's one of these things that especially for the smaller schools and even at UW, right? They have a short answer prompt, which is how are you going to add diversity to my university? This is the foundation for our school. Why us? The why them essay. This whole time, all you're doing, you should be doing your research to understand and investigate what is the most beneficial things that you're going to get out of your experience at Spelman College, right? And that is part of your why statement. If you can't answer that why, I'm questioning why you have that school on your list. Okay. And some of these institutions have a boatload of extra why questions, and it's not just one. And if you're talking about those elite institutions, you will be putting in that active effort. Or yet again, I kind of wonder why you're applying to that school. Because these, especially as I have gone on like 20 tours this year for all of these different schools, and it was University of Chicago was actually one that was very fascinating because they actually do a pool each year for their supplemental essays. And so they pull from alumni and students and everybody giving suggestions about what the next University of Chicago short answer prompt should be. And it's something quirky. And it's not something like you have to take active effort and really think about this. And it's something that, right, like you can't then necessarily prep in advance because they change those ones every year. They find fun in that. But that like goes to show, and they say your primary essay is important, but that doesn't tell us as much as this one does because this is us. Right. And then applying early. We typically are heavily promoting early action because it is that non-binding commitment. You will get reminders of this as we are getting into application time in fall next year. But this is where, like, we have kids right now that are applying to universities. I mean, I am hearing daily about kids getting their acceptances in now and getting offers of money for merit. Which is fabulous. But and this is something where then even some of the schools, like I had a girl I talked to yesterday, and she was like, they told me I have 7 days and they're going to let me know my decision from early action. She's like, that is terrible. Why do they have to do that to me? But the point is, right, you're applying in November and you're going to hear back by Christmas from a lot of these institutions. You're going to have options to pick from, and then you're going to make a decision. Early action is still showing active interest when you're a strong academic student. There's no reason why we don't apply that way. But then there is a combination. Stanford is the most prominent that does restrictive early action, which is a hybrid where you're not allowed to apply to any other school's early action because Stanford wants you to apply only to them for early action. And then you got to wait and apply to everybody else regular kind of a deal. They're kind of rude that way is how I feel about it. And then there's early decision, which is the binding agreement. And this is where this is like the ultimate sign of love and affection for an institution. But oftentimes this is also going to come with you being willing to pay full price if we are a merit-based candidate. And this was a fun one too, because it was like University of Puget Sound does early decision. And I'm using this as my example, right? Because this was fresh and I just talked to them earlier, where you don't have to apply early decision in order to increase your chances of getting in. They have an 88% acceptance rate. Like, we know we're going to get in. We know we're going to get scholarships. They'll take into consideration competitive offers. It's fabulous. But they're doing it as a way, if you know that it's your school, that they want to fill their incoming freshman class, and that's great. Other schools, it is a binding commitment that allows us an added opportunity to get accepted. But sometimes that comes with that downfall in regards to the financial aid. right? So that is, I mean, I've had a handful of kids apply early decision. I had probably more this year than I've had in years past, which is interesting. But it's something that we have conversation about to make sure everybody knows what the heck they're getting into. Yes, it is a great form of demonstrating interest, but typically you're going to hear us advocating early action over early decision for the most part, unless we've got the willingness and capacity to pay the price. Okay, these are the highlight reels in regards to our takeaways for this process, right? Colleges do want to know that they are wanted. If you convince a school that you're likely to enroll, it can be advantageous to you in the admissions process, which is why we talk about all of these things that we do, right? Connect in social media, connect with your admissions representative, attend some stuff in person. Remember that essay is important. And we talk about early decision versus early action, okay? Resources always live in our files for all of the things. So in tools and templates, you're going to see that there is this one called college email examples and instructions. This is where if you are being in communication with institutions and you are actually emailing and you need help with that, because we know our kids don't always do that sort of a thing, there are examples to assist them in that. And so I just wanted to reference that in your tools and templates as well. But one of the things that why we have Alan joining us today is, I think a hidden gem in this process is understanding how something like LinkedIn has been around for a really long time, right? We've used it in our professional lives, but I mean, even me and Corey were both sitting there dumbfounded a little bit about like how much it has grown and the extent that we can actively use it to achieve these things that we weren't even aware of, right? And we've known Alan for a really long time. We've all been in the industry for 12 plus years, right? And the fact that you can use this to optimize enrollment management as well as being able to set yourself up for success in the job market and stuff moving forward, I was like, well, duh. So I'm going to let Alan share how we can use LinkedIn for that opportunity and just how that process of everything works. So I'm going to stop my screen share and I'm going to let Alan screen share in his world.
Thank you, Crystal. That was great. Hold on. Hold on. Get there. There's going to be a lot of redundancy, I think, because you handled that so well. But I'm just going to go through some slides. And
You've taught us a lot over the years.
What's that?
You've taught us a lot over the years.
Well, you know, I'm constantly learning, constantly, exploring and reading the data. And so many things have changed. And certainly the pandemic has accelerated that change. I think, to a point that a lot of us in the industry are still catching up. But Crystal, I think it was a great setup. When I start this, when I first started this about a dozen years ago, and Crystal, you were spot on that. I would always get this feedback. Well, colleges don't look at social media. I used to be in the admissions office, and we never looked at social media. Therefore, nobody does. Well, that's just not true. But the answer is, the truth is that there's no such thing, in my opinion, as the college admissions process. There's not a singular, right? There's 1,400, 1,500 schools. Each one has its own set of needs. Some will look at social media, some won't. Some won't look at tests, others will. You have to really do your homework. But there's three things, right, that every school, I think, it looks at it as its incoming class. It's key metrics. They have seats to fill. They want to fill every seat, and they want to do that to appear as selective as possible, right? And that's where enrollment yield and demonstrated interest comes in. They don't want to offer acceptance to students who won't come. They want to maximize tuition revenue. Okay, so they want to make sure that they're accepting students who can afford to pay, right? So they don't have to discount or who want to come. And lastly, they want to make sure that when they do accept a student who they think will enroll and will be able to pay tuition, that that student will fit culturally and stay through graduation. All right, so I think those are the three metrics that kind of run from UW, if that's the right reference, to a small little school, liberal arts school on the East Coast like Colgate. I think that those three core issues transcend. So there was an interesting, and if people are looking on this computer screen, this may be an eye test, and I apologize, but NACAC, the National Association of College Admissions Counselors, largest organization, very reliable organization, has been doing a survey of important factors in admissions decisions. And the one in August that just came out was fascinating. Now, this is ranked in, by the level of that first column, considerable importance. And I want to just focus in on two elements here. Positive character attributes. Look where that is. That comes right after what would be the core on any college admissions office is your GPA, your rigorous schedule, strength of schedule, right? But right after that is positive character attributes. And I would imagine most families don't even think about that. But this shocked me that it finished there. And the other attribute I think is worth looking at, and this is what Crystal was talking about, is a student's interest in attending. That comes in front of, again, now let me step back. These are 185 schools that were part of the survey, but very representative. Large public, small private, selective, non-selective, everything in between. It was a really good, I think, and the sources out there on NACAC of the schools, but a very, very representative sample. I think this comes as a surprise for most families. And what's really interesting, and I won't even point out where admission test scores are, but I'm sure if you look down the list at 4.9%, only, that considerably important. I think that's shocking. But even more so on this is that NACAC has been doing this survey for 10 years now. And you can look at the difference from 2012 to 2023. And, grades and test scores have kind of been steady. And I think any conversation of what you have to do to get into a good college starts with grades and GPA and rigorous schedule. But character wasn't even on this list in 2012. Tests went from 60% to 5%. Okay, so there has been a monumental shift in what schools are looking for in their students. And one of the things that, I've come to realize is, well, how do you know what the schools are looking at? And I think Crystal touched upon it. I find, go to the website. The websites, I find, for the most part, tell you what the schools are looking for as far as these character traits. Bowdoin, right? We don't just create curious, thoughtful, engaged young people. We choose them. And they're telling you right there, they're looking for students who demonstrate curiosity and a willingness to take intellectual risks. That's the culture of that school. That will be the fit. That's who they're looking for. So that when we talk about holistic admissions, they're going to be looking for, whether in the essay or elsewhere, indications that this is a student who demonstrates intellectual curiosity. Okay, so it's there. Duke, and every school will have this. And I think it's important to take this language of these websites literally, right? Duke students don't play it safe. As imaginative as they are ambitious, they're students community-minded, unafraid to confront difficult and complex issues head on, challenge the status quo, and drive real-world change. That's what they're looking for. And if you can package your story in your application to touch upon those, you're going to have a very good chance of getting into Duke. Now, the other way that a lot of schools will look at this, and here's Pomona, it's not as marketing-like, but you can read, and here is, I think, a fabulous paragraph or two on what these schools are looking for. And for families who are confused by all this, spend time on the websites of the schools that you're interested in attending. You will find absolute information. So if we look here, they're talking about how they use the test. It's optional. And it says, do high test scores guaranteed admission? No, of course they don't. Are those admitted to Pomona strong students who demonstrate intellectual curiosity and enthusiasm, character traits, right? And if you look down the last sentence of the second paragraph, we're also evaluating what and how students will contribute to Pomona, their talents, their qualities, like grit, creativity, leadership, kindness, innovation. Those are the character traits, right, that these schools are looking for. So they're telling you, they're telegraphing, they're giving you this information besides grades and tests, besides grades, recommendations, extracurricular activities. These are the character traits we're looking for. I think the frustration that a lot of students have and families have, well, how do I express that? How do I tell my story and put these character traits in? Well, it is a problem, because I believe, and this is something that I've spoken about for years, the Common App or similar applications just absolutely don't deliver the data set the college is looking for to make these informed decisions, such as your character, fit, enrollment and yield, right? Your ability to matriculate to graduation. They're very good at capturing academic engagement, but not much more, which is the reason why schools are looking outside the application. And this is no secret. All right. I think this becomes a surprise for a lot of families, but this has been going on for 12 years or more, that schools are hungry for more information that's not delivered via the Common App, especially along the lines of character. So they're looking at social media. Kaplan Test Prep has been doing this survey for 11 years now about do admissions officers look at social media. And the most recent one was 2022. For some reason, they did not do it in 2023. But 35% of the college admissions officers, regularly and routinely will look at social media. And this is a LinkedIn profile of a student we work with. And you can see Northwestern, we know Northwestern looked at this profile and she got it. Now, one of the things about LinkedIn that we love, besides being this great template, which we're going to go into in a little bit, is that you can tell it's the only social media platform where they alert you who's looked at your profile. So we know that somebody from Northwestern looked at Meredith's LinkedIn profile. But more than 35% regularly, routinely, 66% believe it's fair game. And they're willing to look at it, although they don't regularly look at it. Okay. And this is, I think, where there's an incredible opportunity for the informed applicant to set themselves apart, because LinkedIn can deliver that statement of character better than anything else that I've seen, that I've worked with. And this is Rashika. We worked with her as well. And she's currently at Brown. And we do know that Brown looked at her LinkedIn profile. So, putting it bluntly here, if 35% look at social media regularly and routinely, and percent are willing to look at it, man, this is just an untapped opportunity to use this as your vehicle to get your character statement out there. And then this goes, long story to this, but I want to get to a lot of other things here. But Harvard, we had worked with a student, and the New York Times had picked it up back in 2016. That Harvard actually looked at a LinkedIn profile, and the student got in. It caused a bit of a ruckus on the campus, and the Harvard Crimson interviewed William Fitzsimmons, their dean of admissions, and this is what he said. So if someone sends us a link of any kind, it doesn't have to be from some company or some organization. If it seems relevant to making the best possible case for that person's admission, we will certainly take a look at it. Now, what he's saying there is that, let's put it this way, just about everybody who applies to Harvard has the academic credentials to get in, right? And that goes for just about every school. The academics are there, but this is the next step. And they will look at it. And the way for Harvard to look at it is embed that link in your application. That's what we counsel our students. Put it in, as Crystal said in that essay. Why Harvard or why X, why us? You put it in, and you can tell it. You can do your research. You can tell the story of your character and match some story of how your character traits overlay what they're looking for. And then you can say, if you want to learn more about me and my work with X, it could be an organization, it could be a activity, check out my LinkedIn profile. And with that URL embedded, we're seeing close to this 66% of schools who say they would look are clicking through. It's powerful. So this goes back, though, real quick to what have we been telling our students, right? And when I first started working about this, talking about this, families and students would say, whoa, I haven't posted, I've hidden, because I thought social media was something that can only hurt my chances, not help. This is something that we have to overcome, all right? And the question is, if schools are willing to look, then why not give them something to see? Why not curate a presence to get your story out there, all right? And it's kind of counterintuitive from everything we've ever heard, right? That social media can only be bad. The media only picks up the stories where social media has disqualified students, right? It's a much juicier story. But the truth is that schools are looking, and schools can be positively impacted by what they see. The best way, and I'm just going to put this in real quick for the parents, a lot of times when students and your children will tell you that they don't post, it's like an asterisk. We haven't posted any place where we think you can find it, right? And if you look at the stats and especially on a lot of these sites that most of us over 30 have never even heard of, there's a lot of activity below the current. So there is only one way to absolutely keep a post private on social media, and it is number 4. And I think if we can hammer home to the students here that is the only positive way not to have something found that you don't want to be found, is by not posting it. That would be a valuable lesson in this speech. So here's my 4 rules of social media. Anonymity is a myth. Posts never disappear. Because anonymity is a myth and posts never disappear, all posts are therefore discoverable. So there's some degree of difficulty, varying degrees, but all posts can be discovered, and people are listening. When I say people are listening, college admissions, employers, grad schools, name it, right? There are people who are interested, right? Because they want to see who you are, and they think they can tell that from social media. So again, I think this is where Crystal and I are very much aligned. If you're applying to UW, if you're applying to flagship state colleges, the chances of social media review are low. All right, even if you invite them, it's low. But as you get to the more selective schools and maybe the smaller liberal arts schools, it becomes much more probable that they will look, especially if invited to. And then there's also this element of, you have on the left-hand side going up, you have on the initial app review, but then you have, will they look at social media on the enrollment yield? And this is something Crystal was mentioning, I'm going to get into in a few minutes. But that is something that schools are invested in. They want to make sure that they're going to accept students who have a likelihood of enrolling, maybe through a little merit discounting, but something that they think will lure them in. And if they come down to scholarships, the chances of them looking are very high, because character, no school wants to be caught giving a scholarship to somebody with bad character. It's very embarrassing. So how do students do this? Well, it took me a few years to figure this out, but the last thing students will do is post things for college on the same platform that they're posting for their friends, right? Like I learned this back, in like 2017. This one student I work with had tremendous success in the Eagle Scouts and had won awards. And I said, this is the kind of thing colleges would be interested in. You should post that. He said, if I post that on my social media, I'm going to get beat up the next day in school because that is not cool. And that's when I realized that you really have to separate, right? Have your kids still have fun on their social media, social channels, whether it be TikTok or Snapchat. Just tell them, go have fun, but you're never anonymous, it never disappears, and therefore everything's discoverable. Now go have fun. But now what you can do is kind of create a new platform, a clean slate. That's where LinkedIn comes in, right? Or if your student is visual and creative, maybe they can create a second Instagram channel, okay? And set this up just for college. So there's no conflict between messaging, okay, between what their friends would see and what we would say a future audience would see. It works every time. And given that freedom, what we've seen in our experience is that the digital nativity of a lot of these students comes through, and they're very adept at telling their story digitally. And here's an example. LinkedIn personally is my favorite platform for supplementing a college application. This is Gretchen. You can just see this is what we would call the banner of LinkedIn. Most of us are familiar with this. Background photo, profile, name, headline that most people don't realize you can edit, right? But here we were able to, get so much information out for Gretchen. That background photo, tells a very powerful story about what her interest is, and then we've got some good keywords there. But more important than that, as you scroll down the LinkedIn profile, the next thing people would see is this about section. And LinkedIn just recently updated it, where you can actually put your top skills right within your about section. And these top skills are your character traits. the character traits that maybe you would want the schools to see, that this could align: intellectually curious, academic achievement, leadership, right? This lines right up with the school that she wants to go to. And the rest of the profile is going to tell the story of checking all those boxes. So she's getting those character traits from the school's website into her LinkedIn profile, and then building the profile to tell the story of this. We also use a lot of people don't know on LinkedIn, a featured section, which enables you to prioritize and to bring to the top of your profile, key links. And from an aesthetic point of view, it's very powerful. All right, so she brought up these 3 links about her internship at the Museum of Modern Art here in New York City, working with the Brooklyn Bridge Park Conservancy. She's an environmentalist, and this is bringing in her, her commitment, her interests. And then she wrote, which a lot of people don't realize, that LinkedIn is a blogging platform where you can actually create essays. And she wrote an essay on her LinkedIn about, her interest in chess, which very early on in the pandemic, I was with my daughters, and we were all like addicted to the Queen's Gambit, right? The series on Netflix. And for Gretchen, she started playing chess as a result of it, and she actually wrote an essay, which is there and is part of her LinkedIn profile. Okay, very powerful stuff. And she's actually put this link into her college applications. And we already know that one of the schools that she applied to, Early Action, has already looked at this LinkedIn profile. So again, it's going to give her an advantage. And for the parents out there, LinkedIn's also a lifelong investment. We worked with this young man years ago. You can see the LinkedIn template has changed quite a bit. But Devin ended up always loved baseball. He ended up getting into Dartmouth, and we do know Dartmouth did look at his LinkedIn profile at the time. And through the years, I kept track of Devin's development. And his junior year, the summer of his junior year, he got an internship with the Washington Nationals, and he's doing, he's one of these data analytic guys. He's studying at Dartmouth, and what was really, really great, I thought, was that I checked in with him. He graduated last May, and he took a full-time job with the Baltimore Orioles as a baseball operations strategist. So we helped him build his LinkedIn when he was in high school. He stayed with it. He's just grew, and it's just an amazing thing for us to see this all work through so perfectly for him. LinkedIn also is great for college search. There are 210 million Americans on LinkedIn, and we tell LinkedIn when we, where we went to school, what we majored in, where we work, and what we do. And LinkedIn kind of, aggregates that. So for Boston BU, there's about 305,000 alumni who are also on LinkedIn. So 6,000 of those people are currently students or grad students. 791 are working at Google, 784 at Amazon. And then you can see, kind of click on any of these links, and you can actually see how marketable a degree is from a school. And you can see if it's marketable within a geographic area, if it's marketable nationally. And it's really, I think, incredible information here, because it's not like subjective like the U.S. News and World Report. This is showing you what you can do with within a major, having a degree with a school. And you can actually see, as you work with LinkedIn, you can actually see what companies are drawn to that school. So you can actually see the viability of your investment for certain studies. Incredibly valuable. Going in now, I'm just going to shift now to the enrollment piece. One of the things that has changed quite a bit in the past, I say 6 or 7 years, and I think, Crystal, this is because of the enrollment management, and you hear this a lot, it's impossible to get into safety schools. And the reason why, I think, is because safety schools know they're safety schools. And chances are you're going to get into a school that's either a Target or a Reach, and I'm not going to waste an acceptance letter on someone who's not coming, to Crystal's point. And this was an article that showed up last month about a very, very talented student who got into these great schools, but for some reason was waitlisted at American University and Northeastern University, right? At some level, it makes no sense. But if you understand what's going on, it makes total sense, right? Every school wants to have a high yield and a low acceptance rate. And the only way they're doing that is by utilizing data. All right. And if a student is overqualified, if that school believes that there's no way that student is going to enroll there, they're not getting an acceptance letter anymore, because that school is going to also get rated on their acceptance and their acceptance rates. So they're using data, and these, like Crystal had said earlier, Slate, and these are some of the other businesses that have enrollment management tools, and they're actually out there drawing data from a number of fields. And one of the things that they're looking to do for each student that's in their database is figuring out the likelihood of that student to enroll by life cycle. So this is coming in from legacy kind of demonstrated interest things like college visits, contacting the admissions office, which we've heard from Crystal. But there's now a whole digital world that they're measuring algorithmically by bots. And, they're doing that. A lot of this is being done on the website. So if we go to Gonzaga here, again, going into the character trait, you see yourself at Gonzaga, what inspires you, fighting for social justice, engineering change, developing spirituality. But somewhere on this, and it's usually buried a few layers down because they don't want everybody to do this, but there's going to be a request information. And this actually was buried on Gonzaga's site under the undergraduate admissions. You had to scroll all the way down to get to this. But once you get there, you click the undergrad first-year students, and all these schools will have the same looking form. The most important thing here to make sure you do is your email address. You want that email address to be the same email address you're using for your college application, that you've used for your college visit, that you've used to anchor on your LinkedIn profile or any other social media site you're using for college admissions. That email address is going to identify you to the school at every touch point. Okay, so you want to fill this out for every school you plan on attending. And once you do that, as Crystal said, you're going to start getting emails. I highly recommend you open those emails. I highly recommend that if there are links in the emails, you click the links. All that is being measured by these systems. All right. Once you do this registration, your time spent on the Gonzaga site is going to be measured too. And that's going to go towards your likelihood to enroll. Very sophisticated, but the technology, although sophisticated, is commodity technology, right? It's everywhere right now, and schools are just taking advantage of it. Once you do that, you can understand that what they're tracking. So this is a little old, 2019, but this was from Pew Research, and data analytics, this is what they look for. So these were students, thousands of students part of the survey. The more interested I am, the more I interact with the school on social media. So 75% in 2019 said that's what I do. Well, of course, schools are measuring this then, right? This is going to, am I going to accept the student? What is the likelihood to enroll? So once you register on the website, then I highly recommend you go back to whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever your college kind of facing social media account is, go back and then follow them on social media. Do it after you register on the website, because then the bots will recognize the email address and you'll get credit for this, increasing your likelihood to enroll score. Okay.
Alan, on that, not to interrupt, but we do get asked, these students, when they're freshmen, sophomores, they're doing AP classes in high school, a lot of them are using their school email to register on the College Board. And then they get to us and they get into applications, knowing that that school email is going to go away when they graduate high school. What's your recommendation on what email address to use?
My recommendation is always use a personal email address. Get a clean Gmail account, or whatever platform you're using, some recognizable form of your name. I find, and I deal with parents and students on this a lot. A lot of schools pressure the student to use the school email because they can see that, right? The school can track. It's in the school's interest, not the student's interest.
Okay.
In my opinion.
So it's okay to make that. You're actually recommending they make that switch midstream.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And what did you say, Alan? Wasn't it like you have to be 16 in order to set up a LinkedIn profile?
The minimum age for LinkedIn is 16. I think the minimum age for Instagram and the others is 13. Okay. But LinkedIn is 16.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
And I put it in the chat, and so the recording of this session per usual is going to be in the files, and I'm going to share that out as well on our Facebook group so that you guys have access to it, especially for families that weren't able to be on with us tonight. And I'll put the link as well associated with that recording for those. So what Alan does is his company is called Social Assurity. So he's one of the people that we have partnered with to help your kid get their LinkedIn set up, right? So he will, and I'll let him talk about then how that process works in his world, but the link to be able to get that started is in the chat box. And so when I see payment go through for that, then I just get you over your welcome email so that you can be in touch with Alan, but I'll let him touch on that here in terms of how that process works once you get connected with him.
Real quick. So what we've learned is it's very hard for a 16-year-old to view LinkedIn as any more than an online job board for older people like me, I guess. And we had online courses and very engaging online courses, but we saw students drop off when they hit LinkedIn. And as much as we said LinkedIn's not your resume, it's not just for getting a job, it's a way to tell your story. It's really a way to complement your application. And what we came up with is a service that gives a jump start to LinkedIn. We send it as a Google form that we developed. Takes students maybe 15 minutes to complete it. With that information, we kind of populate their LinkedIn profile with key elements, and then we set up an online review session for like 45 minutes to review it and build upon it. And what happens is that when the student sees themselves on LinkedIn, right, then when they get it, right, they have to see it to believe it. And once they get it, then we're able to show them how to navigate around it, how to build, on the branches and drop things down. And again, what we look for is we don't want it to be redundant to what's in the application, right? We want it to supplement it. We want it to be that character story, right? If you saw that character was right after GPA and great, and rigorous schedule. And for most of these schools, that is the delivery mechanism. And we want to show perseverance, leadership, intellectual curiosity, challenging oneself, right? Leadership, growth. These elements, depending on what schools they want to do, we work and we refine that story, and then packaged with the application, that becomes, a pretty, especially with the schools, if they say, hey, take a look at my LinkedIn if you want to learn more about, my work with X or whatever that hook is. When the schools get there, that is just it gives such an advantage to the student. Okay. So that's that jump start, Crystal, that service. And we've had it in we launched it right before the pandemic, and it is very, very popular. And it's a very cost-effective way to make sure not only is that using LinkedIn profile as a complement to the application done, but then we're making sure that all the enrollment management algorithms, right, are getting hit. And package that together, it delivers a good advantage to the families.
Yeah. And I think me and Corey were just like dumbfounded, because I was like, yeah, I've had my LinkedIn profile forever. And I was like, I am so behind the times in regards to this. And so we were really excited about like seeing just how far the platform has come and what the opportunities are in so many ways. So I just wanted to there are just, Alan, so that there's a few people then that I'm going to be getting set up that are already part of the social side. So I will get welcome emails out for them with that link that you had provided to me. So there's a quick form, I think, that Alan has you fill out in order to get that information started for him, and then you schedule with him in order to get that created, right? Like he's helping your students in order to make this happen. And so if there's any questions, you guys are always welcome to reach out to me. And this is also on the a la carte options that is in everybody's files in your scholars portal in College Planner Pro. So if there's if you need to go back and reference it, your kid's not yet 16, right, and we're trying to get there, then we understand, right? It is an opportunity. And I know even like John, I was thinking about we've already got kids in college that this could benefit for building out future opportunities as well. So if we have older students that are wanting to do something like this to help with that next phase, then this is also something that they can do.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yes, we did a lot of
pleasure
during this session. So I'm going to ask before we let Alan go, is there any questions that you guys have for us that you want to ping us with before we sign off for tonight? No?